It started like any other flight boarding, a busy airport, tired travelers, and a man just looking for his seat. But what happened next left the entire cabin in stunned silence. A well-dressed black man, calm and collected, approached his assigned first-class seat, only to find it blocked by a woman draped in a blanket who simply shook her head and said, "This seat is taken." No explanation, no apology. Just entitlement wrapped in a smug smile. What she didn't know, he wasn't just any man. He was the CEO of the company that handles ground services for the airline she was flying. Passengers nearby glanced up, sensing tension, but unsure whether to speak up. Flight attendants looked uneasy, hoping it would just resolve itself. But it didn't. The woman, clearly convinced of her own self-importance, dismissed the man again until he pulled out his phone and calmly said 5 words that changed everything. That was the moment everything shifted. What followed in the next 5 minutes turned the entire flight upside down, an announcement no one expected, a delay that had jaws dropping, and a quiet lesson on respect, humility, and power that didn't need to be shouted. This isn't just a story about a seat. It's about how character reveals itself when people think no one is watching, and how those moments can flip the script completely. Stick around because the way this CEO handled it, you'll never forget it. He stood there for a moment, not saying much, just looking at her with quiet disbelief. The cabin had gone oddly silent, the usual chatter replaced by glances and hushed whispers. The woman, still wrapped in her blanket, like she owned the place, gave him a dismissive wave without even making eye contact. "Find another seat," she mumbled. But the man wasn't confrontational. He didn't raise his voice or cause a scene. He just calmly showed his ticket to a nearby flight attendant and said, "This is my seat." The flight attendant hesitated. You could see the conflict in her eyes. She glanced at the woman, then at the man, as if weighing which side to stand on. The woman interrupted quickly. "I was here first. He can sit somewhere else." Her tone was sharp, her face full of assumed authority. The man said nothing. He didn't need to. His suit, his composure, and the quiet confidence in his eyes said enough. Still, the staff seemed unsure how to handle it. This wasn't just about a seat anymore. It was something deeper. What no one knew yet was that this man Marcus Green wasn't new to this. He had flown with this airline hundreds of times. His company was one of their biggest service providers, responsible for ground logistics at several major airports. And while he never liked throwing his weight around, today might be different. The woman had crossed a line and the whole plane was about to find out just how big of a mistake that was. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing a slight delay due to seating confusion, but those in first class knew it was more than that. Marcus remained standing, his calm presence making the discomfort even heavier. The woman shifted in her seat but stayed planted, now scrolling her phone, pretending like nothing was happening. Some passengers tried to look away, but curiosity kept pulling their eyes back to the scene. Marcus turned to the flight attendant again. "I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just want the seat I paid for," he said, his voice measured but firm. She nodded nervously and stepped away to check with the supervisor. But Marcus had already started typing a short message on his phone. He wasn't making threats. He was sending a request to someone on the operations team. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, just one message. The gears behind the airline's polished surface had begun to move. Meanwhile, in row 2, a businessman who recognized Marcus from a recent tech conference leaned toward his colleague. "That's Marcus Green. He's the CEO of GWI. He whispered. If he's standing, something's about to shift." Others began to connect the dots, and suddenly, the energy in first class turned from irritation to unease. Back near the galley, 2 flight attendants exchanged worried looks. They knew who he was too. They had seen his name on VIP logs. But now, they were stuck in the middle between a woman who refused to budge and a man who had the power to reroute the flight without raising his voice. The cabin door was still open, the final passengers trickling in, unaware of the storm quietly. Brewing up front, Marcus stayed calm, but his silence carried more weight than shouting ever could. The woman, now visibly annoyed that no one was forcing him to move, pulled her blanket tighter and muttered something under her breath. The flight attendant returned, her voice low and uneasy. "Sir, we're working on this. Just give us a few more minutes?" Marcus nodded once, then glanced at his phone. A message blinked back at him. Operations notified. Ground delay initiated. Awaiting your call. The clock was ticking. A 5-minute delay had just turned into something bigger, and the tension inside the cabin was thick enough to feel in your chest. In economy, word had started to spread. A young couple who followed Marcus on social media whispered to the older man beside them. "He's the one that funded the solar airport project," the woman said. "He's not just a CEO, he's the CEO." Their voices were soft, but the energy was growing. People could sense something was happening, even if they didn't fully understand what. Then came the voice of the lead flight supervisor, radioed in from the gate and summoned on board. She walked down the aisle quickly, her expression tight. She stopped just short of Marcus, glanced at the woman in his seat, then at the flight attendant who looked ready to vanish. Whatever decision came next would decide the fate of this flight and possibly the airline's. relationship with one of its biggest partners. The flight supervisor took a deep breath before speaking. Mr. Green, we apologize for the inconvenience. We are working to resolve this quickly. Her tone was respectful, almost cautious. She turned to the woman in Marcus's seat and calmly said, "Ma'am, I'll need to see your boarding pass." The woman scoffed but reached into her bag. With exaggerated slowness, she held up a crumpled pass and waved it dismissively. The supervisor scanned it and paused. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Ma'am, your seat is 3C. This is 1A. A ripple of realization passed through the nearby passengers. But the woman didn't back down. "They told me I could sit here. It's just a seat. What's the big deal?" she snapped. She didn't realize it yet, but her dismissive attitude had just made everything worse. Marcus still hadn't raised his voice. He simply stepped back, watching it all unfold with the patience of someone who knew exactly how this would end, but was giving them a chance to do the right thing. Then, just as the supervisor was about to insist she move, a new voice cut in. The cockpit. The captain himself had stepped out. "We've received a hold notice from ground operations. Flight cannot depart until further instruction." The supervisor blinked. The woman looked confused. Marcus checked his phone again, quiet as ever. But the subtext was loud. This wasn't just about a seat anymore. Behind the scenes, calls were being made. The airline's regional director was now looped in. The woman had unknowingly triggered a chain reaction, and the flight delay was now being clocked in dollars and reputation. Yet still, she stayed in the seat oblivious to the fact that the man standing in front of her had just put the entire airline on pause. The cabin was frozen. Everyone could feel that something major was about to happen, but no one expected the next move to come from Marcus himself. He calmly stepped aside, took a short call, and after hanging up, nodded once to the flight supervisor. "All right," he said softly. "Let's go ahead and cancel the ground service contract for this flight, effective immediately." His words were quiet, but they hit like thunder. The supervisor's eyes widened. "Sir, are you sure?" Marcus didn't blink. "Absolutely." Within seconds, her radio lit up. Voices scrambled. The captain stepped back into the cockpit, tension cutting through his composure. Ground operations confirmed the cancellation, and now the flight couldn't leave not without the services that Marcus's company provided: fueling, towing, luggage handling, all of it. Frozen. The woman, still clueless to the scale of what she'd caused, stood up only when it became clear something serious was happening. "Wait, what's going on? Are we not taking off?" she asked, irritation growing. The supervisor turned to her, no longer gentle. "Ma'am, please return to your assigned seat in 3C. Now." The woman obeyed, fuming, unaware that she had just delayed an entire flight over her own pride. Passengers applauded quietly as Marcus finally sat down in his rightful seat. But just before the doors closed, a young agent rushed aboard. Breathless, she handed Marcus a note. "From the airline's president," she said. Marcus opened it, read the message, and smiled faintly. The note read, "We'd like to offer you the airline." Marcus tucked the note away without a word, and looked out the window as the aircraft finally prepared for departure. The woman who had caused the chaos stayed quiet for the rest of the flight, avoiding eye contact, her earlier confidence replaced with awkward silence. The mood in the cabin had shifted completely. People whispered, not with gossip, but with respect for what they'd just witnessed. No shouting, no dramage, just a man who handled disrespect with quiet power. A few passengers thanked Marcus quietly as they deplaned, some recognizing his name, others simply grateful that someone had stood firm with dignity. The flight attendants, visibly relieved, offered extra courtesy the rest of the way. And the captain, after landing,